Hi everyone, my name is Michael K and welcome to a replica airguns video. We're looking at the Umarex EBOS. And now EBOS stands for Electronic Burst of Steel. This is a BB machine gun. And I want to thank UmarexUSA again for supplying this gun for review. Now you'll probably notice this looks kind of like an assault rifle of sorts, but it isn't modeled after any one in particular. This product is made in Japan. Now it does come in a nice box. I'll show you quickly. You might notice here, this is a little bit of an anomaly. It says that the batteries are 2 times AA not included. They are right about them not being included, but it takes 6 AA batteries. So that's the only thing that I saw in the box. I wasn't really looking for it, but I did notice that this was not accurate. And of course, inside the box you have your manual. Now the EBOS uses the 88 gram CO2 cartridges. We'll take a look at one in a bit here. It shoots 4.5 millimeter steel BBs. It has a claimed 540 FPS in single shot mode. Now when you shoot in 4 or 8 round bursts, it will decrease. And as I said, this is capable of single shot, 4 shot, or 8 round burst. It can also fire either 300, 400, or 500 rounds per minute by using the selector switches. Now on the box that the EBOS came in, it says that it has a 360 round hopper, but on the specifications in the manual it says a 400 round hopper. So it's somewhere between 360 and 400 rounds that you can get in the hopper. There's also this spring-fed magazine here, which you can load 24 rounds into, so you gravity feed the rounds from the hopper into the spring-fed magazine. Now the EBOS has a 9.75 inch non-rifled barrel, and it's about 24 inches long. When I got it, I was actually thinking it would be a little bit bigger than this, but it's actually a really nice size. This gun weighs just about 3 pounds, so 2.95 pounds. And as you add the BBs, the CO2, and some accessories, it does tend to add up and get heavier. The EBOS uses an electronic trigger which drives a motor. Comes with top and bottom rails for accessories, and you can see I'm taking full advantage of that. Now the shell on the EBOS is pretty much entirely plastic, although I imagine inside the gun there's a lot of metal parts. Okay, so we're going to take a look around the different sides of the gun and take a look at some of the parts. As I was mentioning before, this is a spring-fed magazine, so you use gravity to feed from the hopper the BBs stored in the hopper, and you shake the gun on an angle until the BBs load in here, and you can put 24 BBs inside the spring-fed magazine. When you have all the 24 BBs loaded in the magazine, you just release the spring and you're ready to go. You have the selector switches as well, and you have this first one here, and this one is for single shot. The middle one is for 4 round burst, and then you have 8 round burst. You also have the safety switch here, so the selector here for safety or fire. The S stands for safe, the F stands for fire. And you can see that you get a little red marking there when you're live. There's this sort of pseudo rail here, but I don't think you can really attach anything to it. It's just for looks. It is kind of cool looking though. You also have some branding here. I'll just rotate this gun so you can see it a little bit. Umarex and EBOS. Again, EBOS stands for Electronic Burst of Steel, and of course the Umarex name brand. You'll notice I have a few accessories on here. I have my red dot scope, and I have my tactical light, and the EBOS does come with the foregrip. Alright, so let's take a look at the right side of the EBOS. We'll start off with the selector switch. Now this switch allows you to shoot at different rates of fire. So this is rounds per minute. Starts off, your lowest setting is 300 rounds, 400 rounds, and right up to 500 rounds per minute. Now I don't know why you would want to use less than 500 rounds per minute. There's no need to change it. Again, we have the pseudo rail here. We also have a serial number. Underneath that, you might not be able to see it clearly. This is the caliber, 4.5 millimeter or .177 caliber. And then we have our warning text here, and I like the fact that it's not in white, so it's a little more subtle. Alright, so we're taking a look at the top of this gun. Now normally there wouldn't be a big red dot scope on here. There'd be this actual rear sight. And to be honest, I found that the notch in the back was really wide because the sight is pretty close to your eye. And so when you're trying to sight this in, there's a front sight here, and then this back sight goes in the back there. And it didn't really look like a great way to aim the gun. So I thought immediately, let's get rid of this rear sight. And the good news is it comes off very easy. There's just a screw to take it off. And I put on this really nice tactical red dot scope. Really nice. On the top here you also have your BB hopper, so you just load your BBs in here. Again, 360 to 400 BBs, not sure which is the accurate count. I didn't sit there and count them all when I loaded it up, but we'll take Umarex's word for it. Somewhere between 360 and 400 BBs in here. Quickly wanted to show you the barrel. Now it's plastic as well as the rest of the gun. I have a little bit of a concern with the barrel. I'm not concerned about any of the other plastic parts, but the barrel, because it sticks out a little bit, if you were to drop this on here, it is a little flexible. So hopefully it's solid enough that it'll take a little bit of an impact. Alright, so we're going to take a quick look at the rear CO2, how you get at it in the stock. I like the stock on this gun, and it's nice the way it just wraps around the CO2. You can see how the CO2 just screws in here. Now I've used this all. It's all been used up. Just screws into there, and you just slide this over. Couldn't really get any easier than that. And it's a very nice fitting stock. It's well designed, and it works well with this gun. Now on the bottom of this gun we have our battery compartment in the handle. 6 AA batteries go in here. I found I needed to make sure that they were well lined up and everything was tight in there. Otherwise I was getting a little bit of a problem with the way that the trigger was working in the electronics. But once I sorted that out, it worked perfectly fine. You also have your foregrip here. And the foregrip is great. It comes with the gun. It works just perfectly fine. You can adjust it by tightening this and loosening this. You can take it off if you like. If you don't like this style of foregrip, you can remove it. You can pretty much put anything you want on this underneath tactical rail. It's a Weaver or Picatinny style. See here I've put a tactical light on mine as well. And as per usual, I usually like to compare the product I'm reviewing to something else that I feel is similar in one way or another. And the closest thing that I could really compare the EBOS to is the Russian-made BB Drozd. So we'll go through this little list really quickly because I know I'm going to get a lot of questions about this. And you know, they're both really good. I think they both suit a slightly different market. I don't want to take away anything from either product. But let's quickly go through this list. Now the EBOS, it has a 1, 4, and 8 round burst mode, while the Drozd has a 1, 3, and 6 round burst mode. With the EBOS you can select either 300, 400, or 500 rounds per minute, while the Drozd can shoot 300, 450, or 600 rounds per minute. Now these are the factory settings. The EBOS has a claimed feet per second of up to 540 FPS. Well, with the BB Drozd, the company decided to go with a very conservative 350, but what I found with almost everybody's testings is this gun shoots well up into the 450 and higher feet per second range. So I think BB was basically trying not to set off any alarms with this gun. Now both of these guns use an electronic trigger system. The Drozd uses a solenoid, while the EBOS uses an electric motor, so slightly different electronic shooting systems. Now when I'm talking an electrical trigger, the electricity is not propelling the round, the CO2 is. The electricity is activating the release of the CO2. Now the EBOS is a much less expensive product, sitting around the just over $100 price point, while the Drozd is going to set you back at least double the cost of the EBOS. Now in my opinion, the Drozd is slightly better made. I feel that the plastic is a little bit heavier. It does come with a metal barrel and more metal parts that you can see. But keep in mind the price difference. And another thing to consider is the Drozd has been around for a while, so there are more aftermarket modifications for it at this time. Okay, so we're going to head outside. We're going to do some chronograph testing with the EBOS. We're also going to shoot at a target from about 30 feet away and test the different rates of fire. And I'll even take a little bit of slow motion footage shooting at some cans. Now before we go to the chronograph test, I just want to mention that I'm actually doing this test with a partially used CO2 cartridge. I don't generally do that. But I felt with this gun, based on the fact that it had such a high feet per second rating. Now typically, most companies, when they claim the feet per second, they do it using a best case scenario. Now they want to get high feet per second ratings because that's what sells the product. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to get the maximum feet per second velocities out of these guns, you need to have really warm temperatures so the CO2 can expand, and you need a brand new fresh CO2. So in most cases, you're only going to get these higher claim feet per second, again, when it's really warm outside, and usually if you're using the first magazine. Now I did test this gun through the chronograph when it had a fresh CO2, and it did get very close to the factory claim specifications. But I also wanted to do a more real-world test on this gun and do my testing while using a CO2 that was well into its usage. Okay, so let's head outside and let's do this test. Okay everyone, so I'm here with my Umarex EBOS and we're doing a rather real-world shooting test. I'm partway through this cartridge, or the CO2 tank, and you will normally get a little bit higher feet per second ratings right off the top when you're shooting from a fresh cartridge. But this is really more of a real-world test here. So let's go ahead and shoot 8 rounds through this in single fire only. We're not going to shoot any bursts through here, just single fire. Here we go. 493, 487, 482, 481, 479, 476, 474, last shot, 473. So very consistent, nice and high, nice and close to the 500 feet per second rating. That's really decent. As you can see, we really didn't go over 500 feet per second. We stayed just under it. Alright, so we're going to move to the shooting portion of this test now. Okay, so I've got my Umarex EBOS and we're going to do the shooting portion of this test. I'm going to start with 8 rounds shot in single fire first. Then we're going to move to the 8-round burst, and I'm shooting this at the maximum rounds per minute. So here we go. We're going to do 8 shots first and see how we do. Gun is on. We're live. All right. We're going to take a quick look and see how we did first, then we're going to come back and shoot the 8-round bursts. Alright, well centered. Seems like they dropped off just a bit. That may be a velocity issue, but very well centered. Okay, I'm going to head back, and by the way, we're at 30 feet here, and I'm shooting in semi-rested position. And we're switching this over to 8-round burst. This will be fun. Here we go. And that's about it. Let's take a look. Well, that would do some damage, I say. Again, well centered. Maybe I need to adjust my sights just a little bit to the right, but they're well centered. And I think what you're seeing here in the elevation is potentially as CO2 cools down, there's less room for expansion, so the gun will lose velocity. And when you're shooting rapid fire, it'll lose velocity a lot quicker than if you're shooting in single fire mode. Alright, so now we're going to shoot up some cans in real time and add a little bit of slow motion to it as well. Alright, I've got my EBOS here, and we're going to do this quick because I got my high-speed camera rolling. Hopefully nothing gets wet over there. And we're going to shoot all 24 rounds into these cans at 8-shot burst mode. Here we go. I think I was hitting my deck. Nice. There you go. Camera's getting a little wet here. We'll pull that off. There you have it. Alright, first off, I have to say it was a lot of fun testing this gun out. I pretty much just wanted to stay outside and keep shooting this gun, but you know, I had to come in and finish the review, so here we are. Now, even with a CO2 cartridge that I was well into, so I would say I had shot probably already close to 125 to 150 rounds with the CO2 cartridge, I was still able to get up into the high 400 feet per second range with this gun. So you can see that the EBOS shoots consistently high velocities. Now, when I did my accuracy test for the EBOS, it also did very well. In single shot mode, it was well centered, and I had a nice tight grouping. And again, when I switched it over to the 8-round burst, it seemed to stay pretty much in the same area. Now, the target that you're looking at here represents another 3 magazines. So you're looking at almost 100 rounds in this target altogether. And you can see it just basically blew this hole out. It stayed right in this pocket. Couple strays, but most of the rounds went right through that area. And as you can see in the slow motion video, even though I was actually shooting a little bit low at first and I was ripping up my deck, I did manage to put all of those cans down without too much problem, and believe it or not, my camera even survived. Okay, so let's talk quickly about the pros and the cons for the EBOS. First off, it's really a very inexpensive yet full-featured BB machine gun. For just over $100, there's a huge amount of fun factor with this product. Now the EBOS had excellent power for a BB shooter. It also had very good accuracy, not only in the single shot mode, but also in the full auto burst mode. Now with the EBOS, you pretty much need the 88 gram CO2 cartridges, or you're going to be spending a lot of time reloading CO2. And that's actually one thing I didn't mention between the draws and the EBOS, is that the draws uses the 12 gram CO2 cartridges in the handle, whereas the EBOS uses the 88 gram CO2 cartridges in the stock. Now the EBOS has dual rail systems, which is nice. This allows you to add accessories like, of course, your scope, your red dot scope. Comes with the foregrip, which is nice, but if you want to change that up and put something different on here, you can. Now I have a tack light, but you can put a laser. There's a lot of options with this gun. I like the fact that the EBOS gives you a nice 8-shot burst mode, whereas a lot of the other machine gun products will only allow you the 6-round burst. Now I really liked the rear stock on this gun. It just fit really nice. I like the way that it wraps around the CO2 cartridge. It's really well thought out. And most importantly with this gun, it's really all about the fun factor. And the EBOS really delivers. I'd give it a 10 out of 10 for fun. Alright, so as with just about everything I review, I'm going to find a couple things I'd like to change. And it seems to be a little bit of a consistent theme, but there's a lot of airgun products nowadays that are using a heavy amount of plastic. And it's probably because it's one of the more cost-effective ways to build a product. And again, if money were no object, I'd like to see a little more metal on this product. Maybe a metal barrel, perhaps a few other components. Now even though the 88 gram CO2 is pretty much a must-have with the EBOS, it is more expensive. So the cost to use this gun will be a little bit more than your standard BB gun. Not only because you're going to be shooting a lot of rounds all the time, but CO2 is a little bit more expensive when you get into the 88 gram tanks. Now to me, the rear sight almost seemed a little bit like an afterthought. It was probably the least liked part of this gun for me, and so I immediately took it off and put a red dot on there. I think if you're going to buy this product, that would be the first thing I would do, is invest in a nice red dot scope for this gun. And lastly, the barrel on the EBOS worries me just a little bit because it does stick out from the gun, and it's not made out of metal, it's actually plastic. So in the event of a fall onto a hard surface, it could break. Would have almost been neat to have just cut it down a little bit and make it more flush. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up this review of the Umarex EBOS. I'd like to thank everybody for watching this video, and if you're not a subscriber, why not subscribe, and then you'll be notified of all my new videos as they come out. Now I don't have this product for sale in my Replica Airgun store, but I will include a link in the description to this video so that you can purchase the EBOS from Amazon.com. I will also include a link in my written review for the EBOS on my website, ReplicaAirguns.com. Don't forget to come and check out ReplicaAirguns.com. I've got a lot of other reviews and articles for you to take a look at. And while you're there, pop into the Replica Airgun store and see some of my offerings. I've got a nice selection of air guns, blank guns, and accessories for you to choose from. Thank you so much for watching another Replica Airguns video. Until next time, take care.